Imagine a man born amid conspiracies, who escaped death as an infant and rose to become one of history's greatest conquerors. A leader who liberated nations, united empires, and built one of the ancient world's most magnificent civilizations. This man was Cyrus the Great. But how did he accomplish all this, and why does his death remain shrouded in mystery? Get ready to discover the extraordinary story of the founder of the Achaemenid Empire. Cyrus II, known as Cyrus the Great, was the first king of the Achaemenid Empire, which dominated much of the ancient world. Ruling between 559 and 530 before Christ, he unified Persian tribes, conquered powerful empires, and created a legacy that influenced the course of human history. His brilliance as a strategist and visionary leader made him a unique figure, admired even by his enemies. But who was this man? How did he transform a small kingdom into one of history's greatest empires? The story of Cyrus begins with an extraordinary tale of survival. Legend has it that his grandfather, King Astyages of Media, had a prophetic dream that his grandson would overthrow him. Fearing this prophecy, he ordered the infant Cyrus to be killed. But through an incredible twist of fate, a shepherd saved the baby and raised him far from the royal court. Years later, Cyrus discovered his true identity and began his journey to claim his rightful throne. Whether this legend is true or simply a story created to glorify his rise to power, it sets the stage for one of history's most remarkable lives. What made Cyrus truly exceptional wasn't just his military conquests, but his revolutionary approach to leadership. When he captured Babylon in 539 before Christ, instead of destroying the city and enslaving its people, as was common practice, he freed the captives, including the Jews who had been held in the Babylonian captivity for decades. This act of mercy and justice was recorded on the famous Cyrus cylinder, now considered by many historians as the world's first charter of human rights. If you love history and want to unravel the mysteries of the great empires, like this video, subscribe to the Legacy of Empires channel and don't miss a single episode as we journey through the epic tale of Cyrus the Great, the man who forever changed the ancient world. Let's journey back to the 6th century before Christ, to an ancient Persia filled with intrigue and danger. Cyrus was born into a world of political turmoil where kingdoms rose and fell with alarming frequency. His birth story reads like something straight out of mythology, and perhaps it is. According to the great historian Herodotus, Cyrus's grandfather, King Astyages of Media, had a disturbing dream. In this nightmare vision, he saw his daughter, Mandane, giving birth to a son who would grow up to overthrow him and rule all of Asia. Terrified by this prophecy, Astyages did what many fearful rulers of antiquity would do. He ordered the execution of his own grandson. The king commanded his trusted general Harpagus to dispose of the infant, but here's where the story takes its first dramatic turn. Harpagus, unwilling to directly spill royal blood, delegated the grim task to a shepherd named Mithridates. When Mithridates took the royal baby home, he discovered his own wife had just delivered a stillborn child. In a moment that would change history, they made the fateful decision to substitute the dead infant for the living prince, raising Cyrus as their own son, while presenting the deceased child to Harpagus as proof of the deed. For 10 years, young Cyrus grew up in the simplicity of a shepherd's hut, far from the luxuries and dangers of court life. But you can't keep royal blood hidden forever. According to the legend, while playing with other children, Cyrus demonstrated such natural leadership and regal bearing that his true identity eventually came to light. Imagine the shock of discovering you're not the son of a humble shepherd, but the grandson of the powerful king who once ordered your death. When Astyages discovered that Cyrus was still alive, surprisingly, he didn't attempt to kill him again. Instead, following the advice of his magi, who assured him the prophecy had already been fulfilled through childhood games, he sent the boy back to his biological parents in Persia. There, under the guidance of his father, Cambyses I, Cyrus learned the arts of leadership, warfare, and statecraft that would one day make him a legend. But we must ask ourselves, is this incredible tale actually true? Or is it simply a convenient narrative created to legitimize Cyrus's eventual overthrow of his grandfather? Many great leaders throughout history have had mythical birth stories attached to their legacies, from Moses to Romulus and Remus. These narratives often serve to explain how someone of humble origins could rise to such extraordinary heights. What we do know with certainty is that around 559 before Christ, Cyrus emerged from relative obscurity to challenge his grandfather's rule. Whether guided by prophecy or ambition, he would soon transform from an endangered infant to the founder of one of history's greatest empires. Did you know that the story of Cyrus's miraculous survival bears striking similarities to other ancient tales of abandoned royal children? From the Greek myth of Oedipus to the Roman story of Romulus and Remus, and even the biblical account of Moses, the theme of the endangered royal infant who survives to fulfill his destiny appears across many cultures. Perhaps this reflects a universal human fascination with the idea that greatness cannot be thwarted, even by the most powerful opponents. And speaking of fascinating historical artifacts, did you know that the famous Cyrus cylinder was discovered in 1879 and is now housed in the British Museum? This remarkable clay cylinder, inscribed with cuneiform text, is one of the most important documents from ancient history. While it doesn't mention Cyrus's childhood, it does record his conquest of Babylon and his enlightened policies toward the peoples he conquered, policies that would make him remembered not just as a conqueror, but as a liberator. When Cyrus returned to his homeland in Persia, he found not a unified nation, but a collection of scattered tribes, each with their own customs, loyalties, and petty conflicts. Most lived under the shadow of the much more powerful Median Empire, the very kingdom ruled by his grandfather Astyages. For centuries, the Persians had been vassals to the Medes, paying tribute and living in their shadow. But Cyrus had grander visions. What made Cyrus truly exceptional was his remarkable ability to unite people. While other conquerors relied solely on military might, Cyrus employed a combination of diplomacy, respect for local customs, and strategic marriages to bring the Persian tribes together. He understood something that many rulers throughout history have missed, that lasting power comes not just from conquest, but from genuine allegiance. By the year 559 before Christ, Cyrus had succeeded his father Cambyses I as the king of Anshan, one of the principal Persian kingdoms. But this was just the beginning. One by one, he persuaded the leaders of other Persian tribes to join his cause, offering them positions of honor in his growing administration rather than simply subjugating them. Where persuasion failed, he demonstrated his military prowess, but always offered generous terms of surrender. With the Persian tribes now united behind him, Cyrus turned his attention to the Median Empire. The confrontation with his grandfather Astyages was inevitable. The elderly king had grown increasingly tyrannical, alienating even his own nobles. Sensing opportunity, Cyrus launched what many considered a suicidal campaign against a force many times larger than his own. Here's where Cyrus's genius truly shined. As the Median and Persian armies prepared to clash in 550 before Christ, something extraordinary happened. Harpagus, yes, the very same general who had been ordered to kill infant Cyrus years earlier, commanded a significant portion of the Median forces. Still harboring resentment against Astyages for forcing him to attempt infanticide, Harpagus secretly communicated with Cyrus and, at the critical moment of battle, switched sides along with many Median nobles who had grown weary of their king's cruelty. Imagine the scene. Astyages watching in horror as his own troops turned against him. The prophecy of his overthrow finally fulfilled. by the very grandson he had tried to eliminate. The battle wasn't just a military victory, it was the culmination of a personal drama decades in the making. In one brilliant stroke, Cyrus had not only defeated a superior force, but had done so while minimizing bloodshed among people he hoped to rule. After capturing Astyages, Cyrus did something remarkable for ancient times. He spared his grandfather's life. Instead of execution, which would have been expected, Astyages was treated with respect befitting his royal status and lived out his days in comfortable retirement. This act of mercy sent a powerful message throughout the region. Cyrus was not a typical conqueror. With this victory, the former vassal had become the master. The Median Empire, with its vast territories stretching across much of what we now call Iran, Azerbaijan, and parts of Turkey, fell under Persian control. Rather than dismantling the Median administrative structures, Cyrus cleverly incorporated them into his new government, presenting himself not as a foreign conqueror, but as the legitimate successor to the Median throne. This marked the true beginning of the Achaemenid Empire, named after Achaemenes, the founder of the Persian royal dynasty to which Cyrus belonged. It was a pivotal moment in world history, as power shifted from the Medes to the Persians, creating what would soon become the largest empire the world had yet seen. How did Cyrus manage to unite such diverse peoples under his rule? The answer lies in his revolutionary approach to empire building. Unlike many conquerors who imposed their will through force and cultural suppression, Cyrus recognized the strength in diversity. He allowed conquered peoples to maintain their customs, religions, and even local governments, as long as they acknowledged his authority and paid their taxes. He adopted the best aspects of Median government and culture while maintaining Persian traditions, creating a hybrid system that both peoples could accept. This policy of cultural tolerance would become a hallmark of Cyrus's rule and a key factor in the remarkable stability of his empire. By respecting local traditions while providing the benefits of imperial infrastructure and protection, Cyrus created a system where diverse peoples felt they had a stake in the empire's success rather than resisting it as foreign oppression. The unification of Persia and conquest of Media was just the beginning of Cyrus's extraordinary career as a conqueror. But it revealed the template of his success, a combination of military brilliance, political shrewdness, and unusual mercy that would serve him well as he expanded his empire across the ancient world. In an age of brutal warfare, Cyrus's methods were nothing short of revolutionary. By 540 before Christ, Cyrus had already accomplished what most rulers could only dream of, unifying the Persian tribes and overthrowing the mighty Median Empire. But his greatest challenge and most brilliant conquest was yet to come: Babylon, the jewel of the ancient world. Babylon was no ordinary city. It was the cultural, religious, and economic heart of Mesopotamia, with massive walls considered impenetrable, hanging gardens that were the wonder of the ancient world, and the magnificent blue-tiled Ishtar Gate that still astonishes archaeologists today. Ruled by King Nabonidus and his son Belshazzar, Babylon was the center of an empire that had dominated the Fertile Crescent for generations. But beneath its splendor, Babylon had serious problems. King Nabonidus had alienated the powerful priests of Marduk, Babylon's chief deity, by favoring the moon god Sin. He spent years away from the capital, leaving his son Belshazzar as regent, a situation that created political tension and religious discontent. The people of Babylon, once proud of their heritage, were growing increasingly dissatisfied with their leadership. Cyrus, ever the master strategist, recognized this vulnerability. Rather than launching a traditional siege against Babylon's legendary defenses, a course that might have taken years and cost countless lives, he devised a brilliant alternative plan. Ancient accounts, including those of Herodotus, tell us that Cyrus diverted the Euphrates River that ran through the center of Babylon. With the riverbed temporarily lowered, his soldiers were able to wade under the walls where the water usually prevented access. On the night of October 12th, 539 before Christ, while the Babylonians were distracted by religious festivities, Persian troops slipped into the city. The biblical book of Daniel immortalized this moment in the famous story of the writing on the wall, where Belshazzar sees a mysterious hand writing his doom during a great feast. Whether or not this particular tale is historically accurate, what is certain is that Babylon fell to Cyrus with minimal bloodshed, one of the most bloodless conquests of a major city in ancient history. But what happened next truly set Cyrus apart from other conquerors of his time. Instead of sacking the city, enslaving its population, or destroying its temples, all common practices in ancient warfare, Cyrus chose a radically different approach. He presented himself not as a foreign invader, but as a liberator, chosen by Marduk himself to free the Babylonians from Nabonidus's misrule. This extraordinary policy was recorded on what we now call the Cyrus cylinder, a barrel-shaped clay tablet inscribed in Akkadian cuneiform script. Discovered in 1879, during British excavations in Babylon and now housed in the British Museum, this remarkable artifact tells us in Cyrus's own words how he respected local traditions and restored proper worship to the gods of Babylon. But the cylinder's most revolutionary passage describes how Cyrus freed various peoples who had been deported to Babylon by previous rulers. Most famously, he allowed the Jews, who had been living in what they called the Babylonian exile since the destruction of Jerusalem in 587 before Christ, to return to their homeland and rebuild their temple. This act earned Cyrus an almost unique distinction. He is the only non-Jewish ruler to be called a Messiah, or anointed one in the Hebrew Bible. The Cyrus cylinder declares, "I gathered all their inhabitants and restored them to their homes." This policy of respecting religious freedom and repatriating displaced peoples was unprecedented in the ancient world, where conquered populations were typically treated as spoils of war. This is why many historians consider the cylinder to be the first declaration of human rights in history, an astonishing precursor to documents like the Magna Carta or the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, created over 2,000 years later. But was Cyrus truly motivated by benevolence, or was there shrewd political calculation behind his merciful policies? The truth likely combines both idealism and pragmatism. By respecting local customs and religions, Cyrus gained the loyalty of conquered peoples with minimal resistance, allowing displaced populations to return home, created grateful allies throughout his expanding empire, often in strategically important buffer regions. Consider this. When the Jews returned to rebuild Jerusalem, they formed a loyal province on the border with Egypt, the next great power Cyrus hoped to conquer. Similar patterns can be seen throughout his empire, where acts of mercy translated into political stability and reduced the need for costly military occupations. Perhaps this blend of genuine respect for diverse cultures with clever statecraft is exactly what made Cyrus exceptional. In an age when might typically made right, he understood that sustainable power required more than just military victory. It required winning hearts and minds. The conquest of Babylon transformed Cyrus from a regional power into the ruler of the world's first true superpower. By absorbing Babylon's vast territories, which included modern-day Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, and Israel, the Achaemenid Empire now stretched from the Mediterranean to the edge of India. Babylon itself became one of Cyrus's capital cities, where he would spend much of his remaining years. Did you know that the Cyrus cylinder is considered the first declaration of human rights? If you're enjoying this video, like, share, and subscribe to the Legacy of Empires channel for more incredible stories from ancient history. And let us know in the comments, Do you think Cyrus was truly a benevolent leader, or was he just an incredibly shrewd strategist who recognized that mercy could be more effective than brutality? Even after conquering the mighty Babylon and building an empire that stretched from the Mediterranean to the Persian Gulf, Cyrus the Great remained restless. Now in his 60s, an age when most ancient rulers would be content to rest on their laurels, Cyrus turned his gaze toward the untamed frontiers of Central Asia. The northeastern borders of his empire faced constant threats from nomadic warrior tribes, fierce horsemen who raided Persian settlements and threatened the stability of trade routes. Among these peoples were the Scythians, Bactrians, and most notably the Massagetae, a formidable confederation of tribes led by Queen Tomyris. In 530 before Christ, Cyrus launched a new campaign to secure his northeastern frontier. His armies marched through the harsh terrain of what is now Turkmenistan and Uzbekistan, bringing various local kingdoms under Persian control. The Bactrians and Sogdians, settled peoples with ancient cities, were incorporated into the empire with relative ease, following Cyrus's now-established pattern of respecting local customs while imposing Persian administrative control. But the true challenge awaited beyond the Jaxartes River, in the steppes where the Massagetae roamed. These nomadic warriors were legendary for their skill in mounted combat, fighting with bows while riding at full gallop, a technique that would later influence Persian military tactics. They were led by Queen Tomyris, described by ancient sources as a ruler of exceptional courage and determination. Cyrus, ever the strategist, first attempted diplomacy. According to Herodotus, he even proposed marriage to Queen Tomyris, though whether this was a sincere offer or a political maneuver remains debated by historians. Tomyris rejected the proposal, seeing it as a transparent attempt to gain her kingdom without a fight. What followed was one of the most fascinating military campaigns of the ancient world. Cyrus crossed the Jaxartes River, the natural boundary between settled lands and the steppes, venturing into territory where conventional armies had traditionally struggled against mobile nomadic forces. Initially, Cyrus employed a clever stratagem. He set up a camp with a lavish banquet and large quantities of wine, then withdrew his main force, leaving only a small contingent behind. When the Massagetae attacked the camp, they defeated this token force and captured Tomyris's son, Spargapeses, who commanded the raid. Celebrating their victory, the Massagetae consumed the abandoned wine, a luxury they were unaccustomed to. Once they were intoxicated, Cyrus's main army returned and captured many warriors, including Spargapeses himself. Upon awakening from his drunken stupor and realizing his disgrace, Spargapeses begged Cyrus to release him from his bonds. Once freed, the prince took his own life, rather than live with the shame of his capture, an act that transformed what had been a strategic conflict into a deeply personal vendetta for Queen Tomyris. Enraged by her son's death, Tomyris gathered the full might of the Massagetae Confederation and sent a message to Cyrus that has echoed through history. Now listen to me, and I will advise you for your good. Give me back my son, and depart from my land with your forces intact, having triumphed over a third part of the Massagetae. If you will not do this, I swear by the sun, the Lord of the Massagetae, that I will give you your fill of blood, insatiable as you are. Cyrus, perhaps overconfident from decades of unbroken victory, ignored the warning. The decisive battle took place somewhere in the Central Asian steppes. The exact location remains unknown. Here, Cyrus the Great, the man who had conquered the known world, finally met his match. The battle was ferocious. The Persians, despite their discipline and experience, struggled against the mobile warfare tactics of the Massagetae. According to Herodotus, Cyrus fought bravely, but was ultimately killed in the fighting. The Persian army was routed, suffering heavier casualties than in any previous battle of Cyrus's career. What happened next has become one of the most macabre legends of ancient history. Herodotus tells us that Queen Thamyris ordered her men to search among the Persian dead for Cyrus's body. When they found it, she had his head cut off and placed in a skin filled with human blood. As she dipped the severed head, Thamyris allegedly proclaimed, "Though I live and have conquered you, you have ruined me by taking my son with your trickery. But as I threatened, I will give you your fill of blood." This dramatic account of Cyrus's end has captured imaginations for centuries, yet many historians question its accuracy. Alternative accounts exist. The Greek historian Ctesias claimed that Cyrus died from a wound received in battle against a different tribe, while Xenophon suggested he died peacefully in his palace. The truth remains elusive, lost in the mists of time and the biases of ancient historians. What we do know is that Cyrus's body was returned to Massagetae, the Persian ceremonial capital he had built. There he was entombed in a simple yet dignified mausoleum that still stands today, a six-tiered stone platform topped by a small chamber. Inside this modest structure once rested the body of the man who had built the greatest empire the world had yet seen. The tomb bore this inscription, "O man, whoever you are, and wherever you come from, for I know you will come. I am Cyrus who won the Persians their empire. Do not therefore begrudge me this bit of earth that covers my body." Or, the mystery surrounding Cyrus's death adds a final layer of intrigue to his remarkable life story. Did the great conqueror, who had shown such wisdom in victory, ultimately fall victim to his own ambition? Was the man who had spared so many enemies finally undone by underestimating a formidable woman warrior? Or do the conflicting accounts simply reflect the challenge of preserving accurate history in an ancient world where fact and legend often blended together? Whatever the true circumstances of his death, Cyrus's legacy was secured. His son, Cambyses II, retrieved his father's body and continued the Persian expansion, conquering Egypt and further extending the empire Cyrus had founded. The Achaemenid dynasty would rule for another 2 centuries, shaping the course of world history and influencing civilizations from Greece to India. But none of Cyrus's successors would ever quite match the unique combination of military brilliance, political wisdom, and surprising humanity that had earned him the rare title of the Great. When Cyrus the Great drew his final breath on that distant battlefield in 530 before Christ, he left behind far more than just a body to be returned to Massagetae. He bequeathed to the world the first true superpower, an empire stretching over 3,000 miles from the shores of the Mediterranean to the mountains of Central Asia, encompassing diverse peoples, languages, religions, and cultures. But his true legacy runs much deeper than lines on a map or the borders of conquered territories. After Cyrus's death, his son Cambyses II took the throne and immediately set about expanding the empire his father had built. Ambitious and determined to prove himself worthy of his father's legacy, Cambyses launched a successful invasion of Egypt in 525 before Christ, adding the ancient land of the pharaohs to Persian dominions. For the first time in history, a single ruler controlled the 3 great centers of ancient civilization: Mesopotamia, Egypt, and Persia. Yet Cambyses lacked his father's diplomatic touch. While Cyrus had been known for his respect toward conquered peoples and their traditions, ancient sources portray Cambyses as somewhat more impulsive and less tolerant, particularly of Egyptian customs. Whether these accounts are accurate or simply reflect Egyptian bitterness at their conquest remains debated by historians. What we do know is that Cambyses died under mysterious circumstances in 522 before Christ, possibly by suicide after learning of a rebellion back home. The empire then passed to Darius I, a distant relative who claimed the throne after putting down several rebellions. Darius would prove to be a worthy successor to Cyrus, though with a different style of leadership. Where Cyrus was the brilliant conqueror and founder, Darius was the administrator and consolidator. Under Darius, the Achaemenid Empire reached its greatest extent and highest level of organization. He standardized the imperial coinage, established a sophisticated postal service, built the royal road, a highway network spanning over 1,500 miles that connected the far reaches of the empire, and began construction of the magnificent palace complex at Persepolis. Darius divided the empire into 20 provinces, or satrapies, each governed by a satrap or governor who answered directly to him. Perhaps most remarkably, Darius maintained and expanded upon Cyrus's policy of religious and cultural tolerance. In Egypt, he presented himself as a pharaoh and supported the restoration of Egyptian temples. In Judah, he encouraged the completion of the Second Temple in Jerusalem that Cyrus had authorized. Throughout the empire, local customs and religious practices continued uninterrupted, as long as taxes were paid and peace maintained. This vast multicultural empire would endure for 2 centuries after Cyrus's death, shaping the development of countless societies across the ancient world. When Alexander the Great finally conquered the Persian Empire in 330 before Christ, he was so impressed by the Persian system of governance that he adopted many of its features and even tried to integrate Persian nobles into his administration, the ultimate compliment from a conqueror to the conquered. But Cyrus's influence extends far beyond the dynasty he founded. His approach to governance, respecting local customs and religions while establishing efficient central administration, became a model for successful multicultural empires throughout history. The Romans, particularly, would later adopt similar strategies in their own vast empire. The Cyrus Cylinder, with its unprecedented declarations of tolerance and human rights, has inspired political thinkers for centuries. When the United Nations was founded after World War II, a replica of the cylinder was presented to the organization in recognition of its status as an ancient precursor to modern human rights declarations. Today, this replica stands in the UN headquarters in New York, a testament to how profoundly Cyrus's ideas continue to resonate in our world. Even in the modern Middle East, Cyrus remains a towering figure. In Iran, he is celebrated as a national hero and symbol of Persian civilization, with his tomb at Massagetae remaining a place of pilgrimage and pride. His image has appeared on Iranian currency and stamps, and Iranians from all walks of life still visit his tomb to pay respects to the founder of their civilization. In Jewish tradition, Cyrus holds a unique place of honor. The Bible calls him the Anointed of the Lord, the only non-Jewish ruler to receive this title. By ending the Babylonian captivity and allowing the Jews to return to Jerusalem and rebuild their temple, Cyrus forever endeared himself to a people whose cultural contributions would profoundly shape Western civilization. So why is Cyrus considered one of history's greatest conquerors? It's not just the vastness of his conquests, impressive though they were. What truly sets Cyrus apart is how he conquered, with a strategic brilliance that minimized bloodshed, and what he did with his conquests afterward. Unlike many conquerors who left only destruction in their wake, Cyrus built something lasting. He understood that true power comes not from terrorizing subjects, but from winning their genuine loyalty. He recognized the strength in diversity, rather than seeing it as a threat. Perhaps most importantly, he demonstrated that compassion and strategic thinking aren't opposites. They can be complementary aspects of truly exceptional leadership. A fascinating curiosity about Cyrus's legacy is how universally he is admired across cultures that often disagree about historical figures. Greeks and Persians, Jews and Babylonians, modern Iranians and Israelis, groups that have frequently found themselves at odds, all find reasons to revere Cyrus. Few historical figures have achieved such cross-cultural respect. The famous Greek historian Xenophon was so impressed by Cyrus that he wrote an entire book, the Cyropedia, or Education of Cyrus, which became one of the most influential leadership manuals in history. While more idealized than strictly historical, this work influenced Renaissance thinkers, Enlightenment philosophers, and even America's founding fathers. Thomas Jefferson owned 2 copies and cited it as an influence on his political thinking. In a world often defined by cultural clashes and conflicts between civilizations, perhaps the most valuable lesson from Cyrus's legacy is that greatness can come from embracing diversity rather than fearing it. His empire succeeded not despite its multicultural nature, but because of it, drawing strength from the varied traditions, innovations, and perspectives of its many peoples. As we look back across the 25 centuries that separate us from Cyrus the Great, we can still learn from a leader who understood that conquering territories is one thing, but winning hearts and minds through respect and tolerance creates a legacy that truly deserves to be called great. Cyrus the Great stands as far more than just another conqueror in the long annals of history. He was a visionary who fundamentally transformed the way empires would be built and governed for centuries to come. From his mysterious childhood, narrowly escaping death at his grandfather's command, to his final battle against the Massagetae on the distant steppes of Central Asia, his life reads like an epic tale of triumph, wisdom, and ultimately, human achievement. What truly sets Cyrus apart from other empire builders was his understanding that lasting power comes not from the sword alone, but from the hearts and minds of those you lead. At a time when conquest typically meant destruction, enslavement, and cultural suppression, Cyrus pioneered a revolutionary approach, one based on respect, tolerance, and inclusion. The Persian Empire he created wasn't just vast in territory. It was rich in diversity, a mosaic of cultures united not by fear, but by shared prosperity and mutual respect. His conquest of Babylon in 539 before Christ stands as perhaps the perfect example of his genius. Rather than punishing the vanquished, he presented himself as their liberator. Rather than destroying their temples, he honored their gods. Rather than forcing Persian ways upon them, he protected their traditions. In doing so, he transformed potential enemies into loyal subjects and created an administrative model that would influence every successful multicultural empire that followed. From Alexander's brief realm to the long-enduring Roman Empire, even in death, Cyrus continues to fascinate and inspire us. His tomb at Massagetae still stands, a simple yet dignified monument to a man who could have demanded far more elaborate commemoration. The Cyrus cylinder, with its revolutionary declarations of religious freedom and human dignity, remains a powerful symbol of enlightened leadership that transcends its ancient origins. Perhaps the most remarkable aspect of Cyrus's legacy is how he continues to unite people across cultural and political divides. In our modern world, where historical figures often become contentious symbols in ongoing conflicts, Cyrus remains universally admired by Iranians and Israelis, by secular historians and religious scholars, by East and West alike. This universal respect speaks volumes about the timeless quality of his leadership principles. As we reflect on Cyrus's extraordinary life, we might ask ourselves, what truly defines a great leader? Is it military conquest and territorial expansion? Is it the pursuit of justice and human dignity? Or is it the rare ability to unite diverse peoples under a common vision? Cyrus embodied all these qualities, showing us that they need not be in conflict. His example reminds us that true greatness comes not just from conquering territories, but from building something meaningful within them. The ancient Greek historian Xenophon wrote that Cyrus was able to extend the fear of himself over so great a part of the world that he astonished all, and no one attempted anything against him. Yet in the same work, he noted that Cyrus won the affection of many nations as no other man succeeded in doing. Diwa. This remarkable combination, to be both feared as a formidable force and loved as a benevolent ruler, is perhaps the most difficult balance in leadership, one that few throughout history have managed to achieve. As we continue to navigate our own complex, multicultural world, the lessons of Cyrus the Great remain surprisingly relevant. His understanding that diversity can be a source of strength rather than weakness, that religious tolerance serves both moral and practical aims, and that lasting authority comes from respect rather than oppression. These insights feel almost modern in their wisdom. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the life and legacy of one of history's most remarkable figures. If you enjoyed this exploration of Cyrus the Great, please hit the like button, share this video with friends who appreciate great historical storytelling, and subscribe to the Legacy of Empires channel for more content about the ancient world. What ancient leader would you like to learn about next? Let us know in the comments below. Until our next historical adventure, remember the words attributed to Cyrus himself: diversity in council, unity in command. Perhaps in this ancient wisdom, we might find solutions to some of our most modern challenges.